It's fairly common for people to say that life is empty. I know what they mean by that, but I think it's worth exploring which part of them is saying it. Because actually life is not empty, quite the opposite. So, let's start with your body. Your body doesn't think life is empty at all. Your body is primarily interested in surviving and procreating. So it's always after sex, food, money, power. You know, however those things might manifest in fame, dominance. Your body's after that stuff all the time. It doesn't think that life is boring or empty. And the way we know about how well we're doing in that respect is through the emotions. If you are experiencing what are called negative emotions or painful emotions, then you're probably not doing all that well in life. And if you're experiencing some kind of elation or positive emotion, it's probably because you are doing well in life. You know, pay rise, new partner, whatever. That's all the emotions are. They're like a barometer for the body to tell you how well you're surviving. Because that's all your body wants to do. It just wants to survive. In the main, it doesn't care how it achieves it. Lying, cheating, stealing. Maybe things worse than that. But that's what it does. Now, if the body is so preoccupied with all this stuff, which it is, then why can we feel emptiness? Well, the point to make here is that the body is boss. Most of us think that what goes on in our head is boss, but it isn't. The body is boss. You may be whining and complaining about life for decades, but you'll go on living. The body will say, get some food, get some money, get some shelter, get some companionship, get some sex, and you'll go and do those things. And to quote what I've often quoted, those who complain don't matter. Your head doesn't matter. It can complain as much as it wants. Those who matter don't complain. The body doesn't complain. It just wants stuff. Survival and procreation in the main. So we've got this scenario where the mind is whining about things. I'm going to why the mind is whining in a minute. And the body just gets on with it. Because the body is boss. The mind might not like that, because our ego likes to think that it has control over everything. Of course it doesn't. So if the ego objects to something and thinks it isn't right or whatever, then it thinks that somehow things should be modified for its sake. So let's go into the relationship between the body and the mind. Well, the body is the boss, the mind is the slave or the servant. During the waking hours, your mind is loaded with a survival program. Go get stuff, go earn money, go get some food, go find some warmth, whatever it is that is important to your survival. And not only that, the mind's kind of like a survival amplifier. Or it's even a pain amplifier, because when the body is lacking something, then there's pain. It comes through as a kind of painful emotion. And so the mind gets hold of that and thinks, oh fuck, I don't know if I've got enough money to eat something next week. And then it starts amplifying it. Well, what shall I do to try and get some money, and blah blah blah. As a slave of the body, as a pure slave of the body, which is a state that most people's minds are in, all they're bothered about is getting stuff and ensuring that the body continues to survive, even though it might be complaining. It still does all that stuff on behalf of the body. It plans and schemes and schedules stuff to make sure that the body can get the resources that it needs. Now, there is a problem with that, and that is that what it means is that the mind is always in a state of anxiety. Not only do you want enough money for this month's rent, you want it for rent for the next 10 years or whatever. You want to try and ensure that you can continue to afford the shelter that you've got. And so the mind is always in this state of anxiety. And it kind of gets tired of it. And so it starts thinking, this is all fucking futile. I'm going to be doing this every day. So every day I wake up, run the survival program, so that tomorrow I can wake up, run the survival program. And so it starts to complain, and it starts to say, well, it's all meaningless. It's all empty. The body doesn't think that. The body still continues to eat and have sex and seek warmth and so on. But the mind sort of gets tired of all the anxiety. And so it starts complaining, because it's in pain. Any sense of diminished power in our psyche, in our mind, creates pain. And we're always uncertain, we're always doubting, we're always anticipating things that might happen. And so we're always in this state of mental anxiety and pain. And so we start to say, well, life is just empty, it's meaningless, it's futile. Which from the mind's point of view, it kind of is, if it is just a slave of the body. And that is the default state. That is how 99.99% of people live their lives. Just trying to make sure they've got a decent pension for when they retire, and that their health is okay, and so on and so forth. And it's serving the body, make sure the body can continue to exist. But there's another role for the mind. So if we take it that life as a whole, that we are a tiny, tiny part of a very, very big thing called life and existence. And it stands to reason that because we're only a very, very tiny part, that things are going to happen that don't exactly work for us, and very often work against us, which will cause us pain. So instead of just being a slave to the body, the mind can start trying to understand things. So instead of just being passive, oh, I need to get some more money, oh, I need to go buy some food, oh, my lover has jilted me, what am I going to do? Instead of just being passive, the mind can become active, and it can start to understand the nature of the existence of the body, and how the body's states affect the emotions, and how the emotions affect the mind. And it can start to understand things. And all of a sudden, the mind has a role to play. Instead of just being a blind slave to the body, it starts to figure out what's going to piss the body off, what's going to make the body happy, how its own mechanisms work, how the emotions work, how the desires work, all with one aim. And that aim is to minimize pain. Numerous people have said the aim of life really is to minimize pain, from Epicurus through Aristotle, through Spinoza, a whole pile of philosophers. Voltaire, Schopenhauer said it. We go chasing after pleasure because the body wants pleasure. But if we have some understanding, then we can say, well, the pleasures that it wants are actually going to create a bit of strife for me. So say it wants, say the body wants, I don't know, 20 donuts a day. The mind can say, oh, well, this is probably going to cause some pain at some point in the future. And I don't want the pain. My emotions will probably become quite depressed. My own thinking will become kind of nihilistic. So maybe eating 20 donuts a day isn't a good idea. It's a poor example, but that's the gist of it. So all of a sudden, the body doesn't see emptiness. It just sees, fuck, I want stuff. And all of a sudden, the mind doesn't see emptiness. It sees a goal. And the goal of life, the meaning of your life from the point of view of your mind, is to minimize pain, which in turn might deliver some pleasure. Although we don't really go chasing after pleasure. To paraphrase Aristotle, he said, the wise man minimizes pain and doesn't bother about pleasure. And Epicurus said the same thing. In fact, for Epicurus, pleasure was the absence of pain. So all of a sudden your mind doesn't see emptiness. It sees a purpose to its own activity. And that is to minimize pain. Now, this is, 10 or 15 minute podcast. I'm making it sound easy. It isn't easy because the mind can say, well, yeah, my life isn't actually, or the life of this body isn't really very important. In fact, not important at all. And I'm not important. In fact, really, I'm nothing. But even so, I'm stuck with this body that wants to live, and guess what? In almost every circumstance, no matter how much complaining, it will continue to live. It is the boss. But actually, through slyness and understanding and knowledge, I can learn to try and steer this tyrant of a thing, called the desires, the bodily desires, in a way that makes life less painful for me. And Spinoza summarized the whole thing very, very well. He said, insofar as we understand nature to be the cause of pain, well, what else could it be? We're part of nature. So insofar as we understand nature to be the cause of pain, to that extent we feel pleasure. There is a pleasure in understanding how life creates pain. In my opinion, it's one of the great secrets of life. The people who go chasing after pleasure are missing the point. What we need to focus on is the pain. Or to quote Spinoza again, insofar as we understand nature to be the cause of pain, to that extent we feel pleasure. If you want pleasure, you have to study pain. And how the whole pain mechanism works in your organism, your body, your mind, your emotions, your desires. Anyway, this is a 15-minute podcast. I can't go through all the fucking mechanisms that are required to enable that. But there's the guiding principle. If you want pleasure, you have to study pain.